They told you the ego makes you a man. But what if I told you it's the very thing quietly destroying you from the inside? What if I told you that everything you thought was power is actually the cage you built with your own hands? The male ego is not the enemy. It is the untrained beast that destroys the kingdom. You see, every man is born with this inner force, this burning instinct to conquer, to dominate, to be respected. It starts early. A boy is praised for not crying, rewarded for staying strong, and taught to win at all costs. And somewhere in the process, he confuses ego with identity. He starts believing that to be a man means to be invincible, untouchable, emotionless. But the truth is that ego, if left unchecked, turns into the very beast that burns down everything he's trying to build. A man with an untamed ego becomes reactive. He doesn't listen, because listening feels like submission. He doesn't apologize, because admitting fault feels like defeat. He doesn't grow, because he already believes he's at the top. But the tragedy is, he's not building an empire. He's building walls. Walls that keep wisdom out. Walls that trap him in cycles of blame, anger, competition, and insecurity. You can see it in relationships. A man's ego will sabotage love faster than any external threat. Why? Because accepting criticism feels like a threat to his manhood. Because opening up emotionally feels like weakness. Because instead of asking, "How can I grow?" his ego screams, "How dare you question me?" Most men were never taught this. They were told to toughen up, shut up, and rise up. But they were never shown how to turn pain into wisdom, how to turn silence into strength, how to turn ego into discipline. So they confuse arrogance with confidence. They confuse loudness with leadership. They confuse control with power. And in that confusion, they lose themselves. They become hard on the outside and hollow on the inside. They attract chaos. They push away peace, and they call it masculinity. But the man who trains his ego is different. He doesn't fear challenge. He invites it. He doesn't break from failure. He learns from it. He doesn't crumble under criticism. He reflects on it. Because his worth is not up for negotiation. He knows who he is. He knows what he stands for. And most importantly, he knows that the ego is not his enemy. It is his responsibility. He wakes up with intention, not insecurity. He enters the world not to be praised, but to serve a mission bigger than himself. He doesn't chase recognition because he recognizes himself. This man is not ruled by his ego. He leads it. He uses it as fuel, not a mask. He understands that the ego wants comfort, but growth lives in discomfort. So he chooses the harder path, the quieter path, the one that doesn't come with instant gratification, but builds lasting greatness. He doesn't need to dominate others to feel strong. He dominates his own weaknesses. He doesn't silence others to feel heard. He listens so deeply that his presence speaks volumes. He doesn't fear other men's success. He respects it, studies it, and uses it as a mirror for his own evolution. That is the mark of a true man. Not how high he stands, but how deep he thinks. Not how many bow to him, but how well he bows to truth. The male ego, when immature, is loud. It interrupts. It argues. It chases attention like a drug. But a refined ego, it's sharp, silent, strategic. It doesn't get pulled into every battle. It doesn't bleed over every insult. It chooses its responses. It acts, not reacts, because it's rooted. It knows that emotion is not weakness. Unmastered emotion is. A real man doesn't run from his emotions. He disciplines them. He trains himself to feel without being enslaved, to express without exploding, to lead without needing to crush. A real man doesn't need to prove. He needs to improve. This one truth separates the ones who talk from the ones who transcend. The man obsessed with proving himself is still chasing shadows. He walks into a room with a chip on his shoulder, waiting for someone to question him, threaten him, doubt him, so he can puff his chest, raise his voice, show them who he is. But the man who's really arrived, he walks in with presence, not performance. He doesn't speak first. He doesn't flex. He doesn't dominate the room with noise. He anchors it with certainty, because he's not here to convince anyone, he's here to refine himself. Proving is about others. Improving is about purpose. And here's the uncomfortable truth most men never face. If you constantly feel the need to prove your worth, it's because deep down you don't believe in it yet. You want others to validate what you haven't validated in yourself. That's where ego keeps you blind. It convinces you that dominance is respect, that loudness is leadership, that proving you're right makes you powerful. But it doesn't. It just reveals your insecurity in disguise. The strongest men in history didn't walk around proving their value. They demonstrated it through action, through integrity, through relentless self-mastery. They were obsessed not with being seen, but with becoming better every single day. They didn't need applause. They needed results. And when their name was called, they were ready, because they had been sharpening in the dark while the rest of the world was performing in the light. Improvement is the most humbling journey a man can take. It forces you to confront your flaws, your weaknesses, your excuses. It demands that you kill the version of yourself that's comfortable, so you can resurrect the version that's capable. You stop asking, "How do I win?" and start asking, "How do I grow?" You stop chasing comfort and start chasing clarity. You stop blaming the world and start building the man you were meant to be. That's power. That's masculinity. That's evolution. Now ask yourself this. Why do so many men resist growth? Why do they cling to their pride, even when it's destroying their relationships, their careers, their inner peace? It's because they've built their identity around being right. They've fused their self-worth with their ability to never be questioned. That's where we land on the next truth. Pride that cannot admit wrong is the anchor that drowns greatness. Pride is the silent killer of legacy. It doesn't show up in an instant. It creeps in, slowly, subtly. It whispers to you, "You've done enough. You don't need to change. You're better than them." It convinces you that admitting fault is weakness, that apologizing is surrender, that taking feedback is humiliation. And while you're clinging to that pride, your potential is sinking. Your connections are collapsing. Your growth is halting, because the man who can't admit he's wrong can never become right. There's nothing more tragic than watching a capable man fail, not because of his enemies, but because of his ego. You can be strong, smart, and skilled, but if you refuse to listen, you lose. If you refuse to adapt, you break. If you refuse to learn, you become irrelevant. That's the reality. Pride won't let you see. It tells you to defend, to attack, to deflect. But what it really does is paralyze you. The great men, the ones who build, lead, and endure, they have one thing in common. They are ruthless about truth. If they're wrong, they say it. If they fall, they own it. If they lose, they study it. They don't protect their pride. They protect their potential. And that makes them unstoppable. Because when you are not afraid to be wrong, no one can use your flaws against you. You've already faced them. You've already conquered them. And that's when you become untouchable. Not because your ego is full, but because your awareness is deep.